Where were you when John F. Kennedy was assassinated? Do you remember how you felt? How old were you? What were you doing? Where were you when the Challenger exploded? Do you remember? How did you feel when you saw the pictures of the children that were killed at the daycare center at the Oklahoma City Federal Building? Do you remember? These are trauma memories. We remember them distinctly. They are indelibly etched into our minds. However, how many of us know the lie that was programmed into us at each of those traumas? Now, I realize that most of you don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm getting there. See, I'm not challenging your memories of those traumas. Each of us remember those traumas very distinctly. However, the problem is that we don't know the lie that was attached to each of those traumas. In fact, most of us have never even considered that the conspiracy killed John F. Kennedy in full view of this country for a reason, in order to program us a lie. We've never asked ourselves, why didn't they quietly poison him and make it look like a natural death? In spite of John F. Kennedy's good front of being healthy, JFK was a medical basket case. So why didn't they try to take advantage of his natural weaknesses? So we've got two facts here. The fact is that they killed John F. Kennedy in full view of the entire nation, and the other fact is that we still have a trauma memory associated around that trauma. However, we do not understand, most of us, how they programmed in a lie to us through that trauma. Now, those traumas that we have just discussed are very mild compared to the type of traumas that we're going to be discussing today and in the workshop tomorrow in the afternoon. I'm here to tell you about trauma-based total mind control. This is a type of mind control which turns the victim into a puppet, a slave. This is a type of mind control which is so horrendous that it dehumanizes a person to be a robot, an expendable piece of machinery that they can throw away. And the problem is that this mind control is essentially totally undetectable. Now, this has been a great conference. There's been a lot of great speakers. But if I was to sum up this conference, I would sum it up as saying mind control and disinformation. What do I mean by disinformation? Today, people don't understand what disinformation is. One needs to go and study, which I have done, how these intelligence agencies that disseminate disinformation, how they operate, and what kind of disinformation they put out. A very good example of this is MI5 and MI6, British intelligence. Maybe a lot of you are aware that British intelligence created American intelligence, and British intelligence is extremely powerful. Before World War II got started, the British had infiltrated the Nazi spy apparatus so that every German agent that was recruited into the Nazi apparatus that was spying on Britain had to become a double agent. 100% of the German agent spying on Great Britain was a double agent for the British. And anyone who joined those spy cells had to become a double agent, or they got dropped, so they kept the continuity. Through those double agents, they disseminated disinformation to the Germans. If you will study the type of disinformation that they fed through those German agents, you'll get a good idea of the type of disinformation that's being disseminated to you all through double agents. Some of them have been up here as speakers. You may think that disinformation is simply passing a lot of lies. No. Disinformation has to look like the absolute truth, but you slip in a little poison with it. So some of these double agents that the Nazis had received very big decorations by Hitler. In fact, one of these British agents, double agents, received the highest award that Hitler could give him, while at the same time he received the highest award that the British could give him. Kind of interesting, huh? An example of how disinformation works. You give 99% true information, and it's that one little piece of disinformation that's the clincher. So through their spies, they fed the Germans the range of their naval radar, but they understated it. Well, the Germans were excited to get any information on the British radar, their naval radar. When the Bismarck sailed, and you're familiar with the battleship Bismarck, because their intelligence agencies had been fed this shortened range of the naval British capabilities of their naval radar, that one little piece of disinformation, they made a big mistake, and that mistake cost them the Bismarck. So see, this is how critical it is to understand how a speaker can get up here in front of you, he can give you 95% good information, and it's that 5% poison that he's going to give you that'll be the clincher. It's very hard to understand, for most of us to understand how disinformation comes about. What I've seen at this conference so far, there's been a lot of things that pertained to my research on mind control. Our Japanese speaker last night, he talked about blood pressure in the head and how he went out to find out. It was so frustrating for me this last week. I tried repeatedly to get a chance to tell him why he didn't find any information on that when he went out there looking in the medical books. Because see, I have been spending time researching mind control and what these people are doing, and there's a cerebral spinal fluid as well as the brain, the blood pressure in the brain, and a lot of other things that he's not aware of that have been suppressed by these people. This is information that they have suppressed, and the reason why is because there's only a few men in the world that know these things, and they're using it to enhance their programming abilities, their mind control programming abilities. So there's a flip side to this. Some of the things that I'm going to tell you about today are horrendous, but the flip side of it is that some of the things that the New World Order and the Illuminati know, if they were put to good use, would be fantastic. I have repeatedly seen that these people are giving us the crumbs of technology and information. In fact, they go to, there's a conference, Bill Gothard seminars, where they teach spiritual principles for Christians. Their programmers go to these conferences. Their programmers, their mind control programmers, know how a person can make themselves into a great spiritual being. They know this far better than most of the Christians, but they use this information for evil. They're able to take and set in things within the life of a person to prevent them from becoming the person that they could have. So there is a good positive flip side to this, but if you saw what I've seen, it would make you angry that these people are taking what could be used for the elevation of mankind, and they're using it to enslave us. So we're going to run through real quickly here some overheads. around this date, Admiral Stansfield Turner, who was head of the CIA, went before a congressional subcommittee, and he admitted to them that yes, the CIA is carrying out mind control on countless numbers of unwitting American victims. And he even went so far as to say the basic methods that they use in this mind control: hypnosis, drugs, and torture. And around this period of time that he was addressing the congressional subcommittee, why the New York Times had this article. Here they mention a couple names of these are mind control programmers, Dr. Ewan Cameron and Dr. Louis Jolyon West. They were two examples of mind control programmers. If we go back in history, you'll see that our governments are just carrying out methods of control that were written about long ago. Now, those of you who have been associated with the Army realize that they have a lot of pamphlets and books for their people. This was a handbook for chaplains, and inside this handbook for chaplains, they tell all of the religious groups that are recognized by the U.S. military, and one of those groups that's officially recognized is the Church of Satan, so that if you are a satanic priest in the Church of Satan, you are exempt from the draft because you're a clergyman. And Anton LaVey happens to be one of the mind control programmers that I have been exposing, and you'll see a picture of one of his slaves in here. In this book, in this handbook for chaplains, they will tell you that there are 3 degrees within witchcraft, and that is correct. Those first 3 degrees make up the anarchy level of the Illuminati, and then you have a hierarchy level within the Illuminati. Last summer, I went out on speaking circuit of 14 major U.S. cities, and there was a tape made, a professionally made tape in a television studio where I explain charts like this, explain a lot. So I strongly recommend that you get that videotape because it gives an excellent overview of a lot of things. But for instance, you'll have this diagram explained, and I go into the top 13 Illuminati bloodlines in that tape. I also have a book. This comes from a book, The Top 13 Illuminati Bloodlines. This pertains to the mind control because these bloodlines learned about these mind control techniques many centuries ago. These are the movers and shakers of the world. And for instance, the Rothschilds, their secret genealogy traces back, and this is inside information. You're not going to learn this reading a book. This is inside information. Their genealogies go back to Nimrod. So these are some very powerful bloodlines, and they have learned a lot of techniques for controlling long ago. And when you learn who the bloodlines are, it totally changes your view of history. Now, for instance, Grant and my co-author back there, Cisco, who I brought out of the Illuminati, her father was a programmer, and parts of her were used for programming. Her great uncle, her dad's uncle, was the head of the U.S. military during the Vietnam War, General Earl Grant Wheeler, and he was a descendant from Hiram Ulysses Grant, and Ulysses Grant was of the Collins bloodline and of the Delano family bloodline, 2 very powerful bloodlines. And you may have thought that he was just a common, ordinary person. To understand what's going on, you really need to understand these bloodlines, and that's why I encourage you to get the book that we have back there, the Volume 1 book, The Top 13 Illuminati Bloodlines. These are just some representatives of those bloodlines. And these are Illuminati members that I'm showing you here that are representatives of the different bloodlines. And the DuPonts, for instance, have been in charge of a large portion of the military-industrial complex. They have produced the gunpowder for all of our wars. So every war that we've had, they've gotten incredibly rich. They also are into a lot of the chemicals. Every day you use chemicals that came out of DuPont factories. The Freeman family and Gaylord Freeman, head of the Priory of Zion. And this is the Kennedys. Here we see JFK at the Great Pyramid. It seems like a lot of these Illuminati types have made a pilgrimage to the Great Pyramid. And here's Anton LaVey. See if I can get him up a little bit so that the camera can see a little bit. This is Anton LaVey with one of the members of his church, Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. was part of Rat Pack, which were working with the intelligence agencies and were Satanists. And one of his slaves, James Mansfield, is there kneeling down before Anton LaVey in a satanic ritual. And here was the first presidential model sexual slave that they allowed the public to see. This is Marilyn Monroe. She was, both James Mansfield and Marilyn Monroe had sexual relations with John F. Kennedy. And here I believe that you can see her switching personalities. When I start talking to you more about how the mind control is done, you'll understand what I mean by switching personalities, because they create programmed multiples where they get a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde effect. And here's this is Winthrop, who's said to have the largest porn collection in the world. And the mind control slavery relates to the porn, the type of porn that they do too. This is Guy de Rothschild, very powerful man. His bloodline will have the Antichrist, and that's his son, David. And here's the Russell family, and represents the Russell family. And here you see Bill Clinton. This is a hypnotic induction for a mind-controlled slave. It hypnotically inducts them. And then you have William Huntington Russell and Samuel Russell, which tie back into your slave trade. So see, these people these Illuminati families have been involved in slavery for a long time, and they've been involved with mind control techniques for a long time. A lot of what they did with the black people was for purposes of, they were very skillfully using trauma and divide and conquer against the black people when they enslaved them. And I don't have time to go into all the ideas behind what they did to the black people, but just leave you with the idea that the reason that they brought over the black people like they did in the ships, with so many dying, and the way they separated them from their past and everything, it was all utilizing mind-controlled techniques. And this is some other Illuminati bloodlines here. The Lee family, Li Ka-shing, billionaire in Hong Kong. Some others. Hitler was of the Rothschild bloodline. I found out that Scotland was very important to all of this, and I just highlighted some of the Scottish clans that were involved in the Illuminati. And for some of you that need to see this, because you wonder if satanic ritual abuse does occur, I got this out of a museum, and it's written it's an oath to Satan that's written in the blood of the person who made the oath. And this is very standard for people within the Illuminati. And this all relates to how the mind control is done, because a lot of you can't separate the rituals, the satanic rituals, from the mind control programming. They dovetail in. But they're also using alien themes in the mind control too. And again, I will explain this in the videotape. It's a castle in Belgium, an important castle of the Mother of Darknesses, which is a rank within the Illuminati. This is the front entrance to it. The Illuminati have set up objectives, okay? And then those are broken down into components, and then they use different parts of society to bring those objectives about. They want things to happen as if they're happening naturally. From debriefing people that have heard planning sessions where the 20-year and the 30-year and the 50-year plans of the Illuminati were explained in detail, one of the major components to their plans is they want everything to happen as if it's unfolding naturally. So where the mind control slavery is so important is they have salted their people throughout all levels of society. There is no religious group, there is no philosophy, there is no political group that can't be infiltrated with their mind-controlled slaves. Here's an example of another objective. And you can see how they've broken it down into components, and then their people that are salted throughout different areas are bringing about those goals. This is explained in the videotape, so I won't explain it, but it shows the type of thing that I go into in some of my literature, in some of my books. And this is the Illuminati occult area boards that when they went to make federal regions, they copied the boundaries that the Illuminati occult area boards already had. And again, this is the type of thing that we talk about in the videotape. And you may say, what does this have to do with mind control? It's because healthcare and control of grains and all of these different things that we see being controlled behind the scenes, the way that they are able to control them is with these programmed multiples. And that's why people are saying, well, I can't believe that there's a conspiracy because I don't see it. No, it's being very subtly done behind the scenes. Here, Alice Bailey, who was connected to these people, was head of Lucis Trust and wrote quite a few books, started 140 New Age groups. She writes, "Years ago I said that the war which may follow this one would be waged in the field of the world religion. Such a war will not work out, however, in a similar period of extreme carnage and blood. It will be fought largely with mental weapons and in the world of thought. It will involve also the emotional realm from the standpoint of idealistic fanaticism. This inherent fanaticism found ever in reactionary groups will fight against the appearance of the coming world religion and the spread of esotericism. The coming struggle will emerge within the churches themselves." She's talking about mental weapons. Now, she doesn't spell it out here, but what she's talking about is the mind control that I'm talking about. And the name of her book's very appropriate. It's Externalization of the Hierarchy. What was done in secret in these secret societies that tie in with the Illuminati, what was done in secret 100, 150 years ago is being externalized into society. And part of the way that they're doing it is through the mind control that's got an alien script to it, and through people that are seeing things and dreams and so forth. You know, one of the ways, see, my father was just naturally smart, but there weren't enough naturally intelligent people for the New World Order types to take advantage of. If you understand what they need to run their computer systems and to do the type of research that they needed to have some trick to get enough geniuses to really move rapidly forward with what they wanted to accomplish. And they discovered that if they scarred the brainstem, they could create somebody with a photographic memory. And so a lot of your people out there that are geniuses working for the system are mind-controlled slaves that have their brainstem scarred as a child. They've been given a photographic memory, and they've got programming. Now, how do they control these people? Well, they are releasing technology at a rate that they have decided upon, and they release that. If you're a mind-controlled slave, a lot of the ideas that you will get will come as dreams. Okay? They're controlling the various Christian denominations, various Christian religions. They're controlling the New Age movement. Your New Age prophets that are seeing things. Where do you think this stuff is coming from? And that's why I was so pleased to see Raylan Russbacher tell you her own personal story about how she discovered that the things that she had been channeling were actually being channeled through her via mind control from the intelligence agencies. This is, it doesn't show up very well on here. It's such a beautiful picture, but it's the inside of the house of the temple of the Supreme Command of the Supreme Council, of the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry in New York City. The house of the temple here, one site for programming, one place for the Grand Druid Council to meet in a room there. When they program, they layer in the programming. They use a lot of, some of the base programs are your Alien scripts, your Alice in Wonderland, and Wizard of Oz. Those are very common base programming scripts. And also Star Wars and Star Trek. Star Trek's a big one. What are the implications of this mind control? You've heard the term paradigm shift. The implications of this mind control are so mind-boggling that it's taken me years to make what people call the paradigm shift, to really comprehending everything we see. Nothing is as it looks, okay? And anything that is clean has been infiltrated and been dirtied. It's incredible. And this is a newspaper article where people are immigrating, where they're coming into the United States from. And of course, if they put Eastern Europe up here as something, it would be right up there probably in the top 6. But you see Russia and China and Vietnam right up there in the top countries that are sending us immigrants. These are countries that are also practicing mind control. How many Spetsnaz agents have been infiltrated into the United States? We're not being protected, but we're being moved towards a one-world government. Well, they will give us perhaps something that looks like this. This is one of the plans of what they want to give us. It looks real nice, and it looks like we are ruling ourselves through this world government. The problem is that with the mind control, they will control everything from behind the scenes. So, including, I had a friend who was a mind control victim, And one of the insiders that is trying to fight the New World Order came up to him and said, this was back in 1990, and said, "You are a monarch mind-controlled slave." He didn't know what that meant. He said, and this insider said, "As proof of who I am and that my information is for real." This was 6 months before the primary election in which Bush and Clinton ran against each other. He pulled out a map, and it had all the votes for the final votes of the presidential campaign, the electoral college votes, and the final popular votes. And these men found out the same thing that I found out from various sources. James Collier and his brother, they spent 20 years tracking down how the voting is rigged. I'm telling you, people, nothing is as it seems, and there are people that can come up here and stand up here and be a lot more humorous than I, and can tell you, you know, that you can vote these people out of office. There is no political system that is going to work anymore when they are making mind-controlled slaves. And I'd love to have all of you come to my workshop, because there's so much that I have to say, and it's so important. And our table's back there. Thank you.